Call to order a meeting for the Rockland Community Preservation Committee on the 7th of May, 2020.
Motion.
Let me see. So we have Jen here. If you guys haven't met Jennifer, she's the Assistant Town Administrator. And she's got a PowerPoint that you guys can see up on the screen there. She shared her screen.
Yeah.
She's going to go through it slide by slide and explain to us a rental assistance program in response to the, obviously, the COVID pandemic. I've looked into a few of the things, and I know that they've talked to Stuart as well of ways to use this for, you know, getting it quickly passed through, get it on the warrant and get this thing approved to try to help some people out. So if you're all set, Jen, you can go right ahead.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me okay? And can you see the slideshow, the slide presentation okay? Okay. So as Derek explained, obviously the current pandemic has spared very few people across the nation and the world, truthfully, but particularly in Massachusetts. And so one of the ways that we can help locally is to use local funding to directly impact local households. And the CPA, the Community Preservation Act, allows for rental assistance programs. In fact, some communities do it as a routine practice, particularly in response to the current crisis, and where we have, I think, a record, I think I saw 33 million people across the country have lost their jobs. This is one way, as I said, that we could help locally. So I pulled together a PowerPoint presentation which talks about the housing structure in Rockland, some of the rental, the average rents, the average income levels, and some of the program guidelines. The program would be, or the proposal would be a Board of Selectmen proposal on the warrant, if supported by the CPC, and it would be administered by a third party. Right now we're speaking with COG, Community Opportunity Group. They administer our Community Development Block Grant Program. And in the past, through CDBG funds, the town may have had a rental assistance program. It's something that CDBG funds are also an allowed use for. So the housing landscape in Rockland is about 25.5% renters and 74.5% ownership. That doesn't vary too greatly from statewide statistics. So statewide, there's about 62.3% homeownership and 37% are renters. Just to give you an idea of the breakout. CPA, the rental assistance program, really can only be used to assist renters. It cannot be used to help homeowners because of the market rate values of the homes. If we were to give public assistance and a homeowner were to turn around and sell, they could and likely would profit off their sale, and that's not the intent of affordable housing. The only homeowners who would be eligible are any who may already have a pre-existing affordable housing restriction on their property. The next slide talks a little bit about the housing burden experience in Rockland. So that housing burden means any household that's expending in excess of 30% of their gross income on housing. So in Rockland, 40% of all renters are housing cost burden, 20% of those are severely cost burden, and 20% of all homeowners in Rockland are house cost burden. And the reason I put this in here is just to give you some idea of who the renters are and what job loss, how significantly a job loss could impact those households. Employment impact on Rockland residents. So there's been a significant impact to a number of industries. And I talked a little bit about the current unemployment rates at 33 million. But in Massachusetts, between March 16th and April 11th, there were 571 unemployment claims filed. And obviously that was almost a month ago now. So that number has only climbed. Of those, 325,000 claimants represent the food accommodation, retail trade, healthcare and social assistance, and construction. And these are occupations that a significant number of Rockland residents, occupations that they hold. And again, the correlation is that I think Rockland, the data is showing us that it's likely a significant number of renters and Rockland renters have been financially impacted by the crisis. Food preparation, serving, office administration, sales occupations have had the largest number of claims with 40%. And evidence shows that economic crisis has disproportionately impacted workers less than 30 years of age and low to moderate income households. And again, I threw that in there because those also tend to be renters versus homeowners. So the next slide talks about, again, assisting, how we could assist and what assistance exists right now, statewide and at the federal level, and how we could assist locally. The whole purpose of the program would be to help prevent households from being displaced by eviction or foreclosure. At the state and federal levels, there is currently a moratorium on evictions and foreclosures, which is great, and that's helpful. The part that's not so helpful about it is it's really only a delay in potentially the inevitable. There's no remedy, there's no financial assistance associated with any of the assistance offered by at the state or federal level. However, locally, fortunately, Rockland has CPA and affordable funds available in your affordable housing bucket, where you could have a direct impact on households, local households who have been affected by the crisis. I will let you know, in addition, there has been an additional infusion of $20 million to Massachusetts Community Development Block Grant Program. A lot of those funds, about half of the funds, will be targeted toward, my understanding is targeted towards rental and homeowner assistance. And it is our intent to apply for those funds. So whatever CPA or funds, however much CPA is available in CPA funding, hopefully the town is awarded CDBG funds and we could just further leverage or impact that many more households. Adopting the program will also help us with the CDBG application because we will have already established the program locally and we can hit the ground running if awarded. And it also shows some buy-in from the community, and again, would have a greater impact than just any single funding source. Households that are eligible and are able to receive assistance, it would help bring them current on their past due payments. It's essentially a housing assistance program. And one of the things that tends to get overlooked is, yes, we're helping. Such a program has a multiplier effect. So yes, we're helping that renter household sustain their housing and give them some sort of stability, but that behind every renter is a property owner, and so the payments will go directly to the landlord, therefore helping to ensure that they're able to make their mortgage payments, and in turn as their property tax payments also. And that is revenue that the town locally heavily relies on. And with revenues in other areas down, I think it's really vital that if there's a way for us to ensure that property owners are able to maintain their tax payments, it's kind of money that goes out and comes right back to the community and helps keep the local economy moving forward. There would be some program eligibility around the program. The recommendations are that obviously it be a Rockland resident that's receiving the assistance. They would have to income qualify. As you all know, CPA allows assistance for households up to 100% AMI, which is great because typically a lot of the housing programs, max out at 80%, and they tend to be around the 50 to 30% AMI range. At 100%, this will allow us to reach a broader group of households. And to give you some idea of what 100% AMI looks like for a family of four, that would be $113,300. For a family of four at 80% AMI, it's $90,640. The household would have to document a loss or reduction in income due to the COVID pandemic. And one of my recommendations is that the monthly rental assistance does not exceed the FY 2020 HUD fair market rents for the Boston Quincy area, and that's Rockland falls within those limits. The next slide shows what those maximum monthly rents look like. So for example, a 1-bedroom unit is $1,900, or could have a maximum rent of $1,900. In Rockland, you could see it's the blue chart to the left. Your average monthly housing costs range from $1,000 to $1,500 per month. And so based on that information, I estimate that on average, let's see, Rockland could assist approximately 40 households. And that 40 number is based on just CPA funds. That does not include any potential CDBG awards. Additional program guidelines would make the program a lottery selection. This way we would give equal opportunity to anyone who's deemed eligible, any opportunity to be awarded the fund. Because we can only assist 40 households, although I hesitate to say only because 40 households is a significant number. We would advertise it. Applications would be due by a certain due date. On that date, the lottery would be held. At this point, it probably looks like via a Zoom lottery, which I'm not sure has happened before in the state. I think that it should be a temporary program, at least to begin, and run, this is flexible and we can adjust, but run through at least February 28th, which would put us at a year, just shy of a year mark of the pandemic. It would be a grant program, so there would be no expectation of repayment on the part of the households. Again, it's to help those households with some stability. They would have to have a rent or a lease agreement with the landlord. That just really helps us verify that in fact this was a renter that was in the middle or at some stage of a lease with an existing landlord. As I explained earlier, if there is a homeowner that qualifies, they would have to demonstrate that there is already a recorded affordable housing restriction on their property. We would document, so COG, Community Opportunity, the third-party administrator, already income qualifies households for the CDBG program when they come in for a housing rehab loan, for example, and they would do the eligibility check for the town on this rental program. Again, this is a point for discussion, but the suggestion is a maximum assistance of 2 months. From what I understand, that's a fairly common duration some of the other federal programs. Maximum monthly assistance not to exceed the HUD, again, FY20 fair market rent value, so that gives us some parameters around the program. Somebody came in and said, well, I qualify now, but my rent is $5,000 a month. It's probably not going to be deemed all that reasonable. Certainly under this program, we would have a basis to say, I'm sorry, that doesn't qualify. If a household had reduced income and they could say, I really can't make my rental payments right now, but I could contribute to a portion of it, that would be the ideal scenario. And in that case, a maximum we would be able to contribute is consistent with the HUD limits. And then just a couple of other things for consideration, or that we could consider outside of the program eligibility. And again, with the goal being to get funding or assistance to as many households as possible, is we could negotiate or approach the landlords to see if they'd be willing to reduce rent for a certain period of time. Um, you know, the basis that's used in other state and federal programs is that the housing cost doesn't exceed that housing burden, so that 30% of a household's gross income. And we could ask with every applicant, so we might have some applicants who are down to zero income, or some who have reduced income. If there's an ability for them to contribute towards the rent, that is something we could also approach. And then just what the processes would be. This idea has already been proposed to the selectmen. It was not on this week's agenda, which was out prior to the CPC meeting being scheduled, which is the only reason that we didn't put it before them for a vote yet. I don't know that they necessarily need to vote for the CPC to approve it. If you preferred that, I would suggest that you can condition your vote on an approval from the Board of Selectmen. And then, as I think guys know the rest of the process. It's presented to town meeting as a CPIA approved project, and then pending town meeting approval, the program could then begin. I will, bear with me. I don't mean to be hokey, but I did come across this, and I think it applies to this program and CPA generally. We rise by lifting others. Again, I'll go back to an earlier statement. The greater benefit of the rental assistance program is stabilizing that household, but also to help the local economy keep moving. And that is the end of the presentation.
Well done.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Thank you.
I am gonna bring this up.
That was a lot of information, but I'm not sure if anyone had questions.
No.
I have questions.
Sure.
Do I have the floor?
You.
Yep.
Thank you. You answered a couple of them. It's a short-term program, and you're going to do a lottery. Landlords, the checks go directly to them, and they have to provide a W-9 form, I believe.
Correct. That's right.
And the other question I have, this is only open to Rockland residents only?
Yes. Typically, that's not a preferred it's usually not a preferred preference. I have talked to Stewart, Saginaw, as well as Mass Housing Partnership that is supporting the program, and they both concur, given the current circumstances, that will not be a requirement that'll be questioned.
What if they're already on Section 8? Are they eligible?
I would have to explore that a little bit more, but I think that they may be eligible, and that could be dependent. That could be a local decision. Because with Section 8, those households, their rent is also dependent upon their income, and there's nothing to say that a household on Section 8 with a Section 8 voucher doesn't see reduced income. I'm inclined to say, because I think this question came up, that they may not. It would be reasonable that they're not eligible because their Section 8 voucher may adjust. But I can double check that.
I like the idea of this, as long as it's a short-term program, it doesn't turn into a regular program to help out these people. I think it's a great idea. That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Can I chime in for 1 sec?
Yep. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's a no-brainer. So how would it work, Jen? Like, we would just vote a bottom line dollar, and then who would go through the process, Jen, of choosing who gets what, and how does that all happen? Like, would that be the selectman yourself, or would that be us? Or?
Yeah. The process would be by the third party administrator, and a portion of the funds can be used to pay could be used for administrative costs.
Yeah, no, like I said, I think it's a no-brainer. Like, Joe said, to help people out that can't, that are probably having problems. That's just my opinion.
Absolutely. I do
have a,
what
go
is
ahead.
it, a cutoff you were suggesting, Jen, of 2 months worth of what their obligation for rent would be?
Yes.
All right, so now would that be something if you were, where it's going to be given on a lottery system, would that be something that, I mean, day to day, everything changes with this. If this person or this family is in dire straits beyond the 2 months, would they then be able to almost like re-enter a lottery system again as this thing gets prolonged through to possibly 2021?
Probably not. No, I mean, if we put a limit of 2 months on it, they will have maxed out under the program requirements. Because I believe there's about 65,000 in the affordable housing category. Does that sound right, Derek?
Yeah, that's 60, 67 something or 68,
Yeah.
right around there.
I think it could go up to 3 months. I just am not, that could reduce the number of households you're able to assist. It's a question that gets asked consistently under the current circumstances, and nobody really has an answer for it. The answer is that it's putting that family in a better position, and I think that's why it would be wise to have the administrator reach out to landlords and say, "Are you willing to work with this household?" So we know they won't be evicted until 45 days after the end of the emergency declaration, whenever that may be, if they're still behind on their rent payments. There is no great answer for that.
Now with that, would there be, obviously extra consideration given to those that are able to bring up a portion of what's owed rather than, having to have the fund basically the 100% of their monthly obligation? Would it be something, could they extend it? Like if their max number is $1,900 a month and they, $3,800 over the course of 2 months, but they can come up with 600 or 700 a month, would they be able to extend it out to a third month because they haven't used their max, appropriated funds? Would $3,800 be the max, and stretch it over to 3 months or 4 months?
So yes or no, because if a household's rent is, let's just say $1,000 a month, and we say they're eligible for 2 months worth of rent, they would only be eligible for 2,000 in total.
Yeah, but could it be broken up into multiple months beyond 2 months? Does it have to be used as lump sum 1 month at a time?
I mean, I think we wouldn't want to do that, because if they're able to contribute to the rent, that means there's more money left in the pot to help another household. But I mean, I guess that could be an option.
Do you
That
foresee,
would be a consideration.
enough enrollment in a program like this? Do you think it's something that would reach enough that it would basically drain the account, that all funds would be spoken for?
It's hard to say, but based on the unemployment numbers and the industries affected and the occupations in Rockland and the typical for the average area median income, I do think it could run dry. And I think even if we don't see that happen by the fall, I think the expectation is that this is going to continue for a significant number of months. There's even discussion about whether, as we phase back, it'll be an intermittent phasing back, because there's a lot of concern around the flu season and a resurgence of COVID. So, it's still in question what that does to people, and if it kicks them back out of work. I mean, on the town side, it's something we struggle with, is just all the unknowns. It's really hard to answer. Like I said, we are going to apply for the community development block grant, and additional funding through that program will be sought. So I mean, that's another consideration in thinking if you guys would prefer a 2-month maximum versus a 3-month maximum. There's not a guarantee on the block grant funds, but I hope that we would have a decent shot. It is funding that we routinely receive and perform well on.
Excellent.
Maybe, yeah, for comparison, I believe that we utilize, well, I know that we utilize all our housing rehab assistance. And so those are similarly situated households who typically are working and access that program. So this is just another layer on that population that would likely be seeking assistance. So I don't have the crystal ball. I wish I did, but I do suspect that the funds will go.
Oh, excellent. Excellent.
So what is the pool amount? Are we talking the whole 86,000 that we have allotted to housing, or?
Is it that high? I thought it was lower than that.
I
Well,
thought it was 6.
That was the beginning balance. I'm not sure what we had allocated to projects already, but it was
Out of housing, I don't think we've actually.
Zero.
community housing was 86,600 that we
So-
had available, 2 years worth of what, 44 or 500.
Yeah, because we haven't allocated anything from community housing yet. We haven't had any projects brought up that met the criteria of CPA.
Right.
So whatever that is, that would be the available balance. But I think, is that the available balance at the end of this fiscal year? After the,
I'm looking at a general ledger from January. I don't think that includes fiscal 21 as of July 1st.
okay, there is a substantial amount more than.
Well, and
So with those
that,
numbers, guys, just some, napkin math, if we were to look at the 40 households that Jen identified, that would allow us to give $700 to each of those households without having to use a lottery system for 3 months. That's 84,000.
Yeah, and I mean, that's considerable depending on what their situation is, whether they do have the means to come up with the rest of what might be a $1,200 or, up to what was it, $1,900.
Right.
So that would, if we wanted to, bring that back to cover full boat for a 2-month maximum. Now you're in the area of where they probably need to be in that $1,400, $1,200 range.
It does seem doable for 40 households.
Yeah. Yeah, that could, I mean, like I said, like Pete said, like Joe, I think it's a no-brainer that, and I, for one, am 100% with, expend it all. It's been a couple of years now. We haven't had anything come through of substance from housing. An opportunity like this comes up, which I think is a pretty good use of this fund. Put it all, everything that's in the tank into it. Where obviously there's going to be some administrative costs for a third party to run this. So with that,
Jen, do you have any idea of what we're looking at for costs for the administrator? Any sense, ballpark?
The cost, I think it will be about $225 per household. The expectation is it would be under $10,000. And that's, yeah.
Is our housing department not able to manage this?
We don't technically have a housing department out of town hall. We do have the state, we have a housing authority.
Sorry, our housing authority.
Yeah, that's a separate entity. I don't know if they have the capacity to, but these are CPA or state fund, or excuse me, local funds. So there's nothing to stop a town from working with the housing authority on a project like this. I don't know if they have the capacity.
Oh, so the housing authority for the town of Rockland is not a town board?
No.
Okay. My misunderstanding.
Those people get a very discounted rate on their rent as it is. I think this is basically for the young families that are struggling. The housing authority people have their Social Security income going towards their rent. It's based off what they get off Social Security, I believe. I could be wrong.
No, I think you're correct. That is senior housing, and interestingly enough, seniors we're finding are some of, at least financially, the least impacted, and that's only because a lot of them are already on fixed incomes. And so they've remained fairly steady through this.
The only other point I want to make is that, you know, I was reading through the, there was some guidance that was issued from Community Preservation Act from the state of Massachusetts, like a, you know, 8-point, just kind of remember this as you think about COVID aid. And one of those was about restrictions for, you know, existing residents of a town versus, you know, residents coming inbound to a town. It's, I'll read it. It's federal case law prohibits durational residency requirements when seeking public assistance. Exclusions of people who don't already live in the community could be problematic, particularly if the program becomes long-term. Perhaps revisit the guidelines every 90 days. But I think, yeah, I think, you know, what you said about talking to Stuart, and that if it's a short-term program, we probably won't run afoul of it, especially if we say, you know, it's for the 40 or so households that have already been identified.
Sounds good. Anybody else?
Yeah, I have reservations about the lottery system. I don't know that there's a better way around it. It's just something about a lottery system. I don't, rubs me the wrong way, but if that's the best way to do it and you guys all think it's the best way to go, then it's the way we go. But it's something about the lottery rubs me the wrong way.
Do people have to actually apply to get into the lottery, or do we just have a master list that we're going to send out mailers saying, hey, congratulations, you're eligible for this much assistance?
No, they have to qualify and come in and apply to be in the lottery.
Okay, that's probably the best way.
Yeah.
Now, do you have a cutoff number? Because I hear what Steve's saying. It would kind of be a bummer for, you know, two people live side by side, same circumstances. One of them gets it, one of them doesn't. Is there any kind of I mean, not really a system to do it, but I mean, judging by if it's 40 households, breaking down, like, you know, a specific amount, and just say, look, this is what we're capable of doing.
Yeah, it's hard to do because we don't know what the applicant's rent will be or their ability to help contribute.
Yeah.
So the best we can do is, and that's part of the benefit in the circumstance to doing the lottery, is we can collect all those eligible applicants. And then I mean, it literally is a lottery. And, you know, as we pull the applications, I believe we run the numbers, and once we start to max out, we stop there. But then it also does give us, you know, that applicant pool. So my expectation is if this goes through, we'll be able to allocate those CPA funds. And then if we are awarded the CDBG funds, we will already have that pool of applicants to work off of with the additional funding. Yeah, I mean, no matter how you look at it, unfortunately, if there are 100 applicants, we know now that we won't be able to help everybody.
Right.
You know, it's a question I struggle with because I would love to say we can help everybody, but you guys know the reality as much as I do. We only have so much funding, but it's better to help even a single household, in my opinion, than no household.
Now, in this lottery system, with a third party running it, is there any extraordinary circumstances that would allow somebody, you know, if everybody gets a ticket thrown in, give preference or multiple chances or whatnot to honorably discharged service members or veterans?
I don't, if veterans may be able to be prioritized, and I mean, we could say percentage, or we'd like to see 3 veteran households receive the benefit if we receive a veteran application. And I could certainly explore that.
Okay. So there's definitely still some information we'd have to look into, but I think that, you know, based on that, what we've heard, I mean, I'm thinking it's a pretty good use for it, but you know, I'm just one voice.
I just had one question about the timing. I know you put March to February for the program, but with it being a vote, where it being funds, where we haven't, I don't know, we didn't put an application in for this year, but are we talking about paying the rent for someone in July and August, for someone that's going through something now?
I'm not sure if I understand the question. So are you saying if somebody had
Well, we're
paid for rent that was due prior to town meeting vote?
right. I'm just wondering when it would actually be valuable and paid for the actual person. So, you know, you were going through this right now. You know, I'm laid off. I can't pay my rent.
Mhm.
I don't know about this program. The application, we vote for it in June, I believe, right? June.
Right.
Would then, you know, possibly the town approves it. So I'm saying then I apply for it in July.
Right.
So maybe I'm getting August paid for and September paid for,
Mhm.
but this is, and I totally do not expect this to be over by then, to be honest with you. But by then this is all over. So I guess just the time, is that the real timing that we're talking about here?
Yeah, so we couldn't expend the funds until July 1 or later, and there does need to be a marketing of the program. So I think that there would be opportunity on either end of town meeting or the lottery for everybody to be aware of it and make an application. So even though we could technically on July 1 start making rental payments, we need to market the program, and that's associated with fair housing.
Sure. So we're talking end of this year is when we actually have the program up where people could actually apply, get a payment. By then, they may not even have a rental problem. Or can they say it's back in March? Or I'm still having a problem in August?
Yeah, that if we can go retroactive, I'm not 100% sure on, but that's a very good question. I want to say yes, because the funds are from previous years. We're not looking forward on the CPA funding, but I can definitely confirm that with probably DOR or the CPA coalition, if we can go backwards on the rent. I believe the answer is yes, but I will confirm that. But either way, I think answering your question is that there will be a marketing period. So it won't be like July 1, the program's approved, and if you aren't in before then, you're kind of out of luck. But if by September 1st, we've allocated all the funds and you don't realize the hardship until October, November, yeah, I mean, we just wouldn't have any funds left.
A landlord would probably supply any funds to the oldest arrearage anyway. So if the person is behind April, May, June, you give them funds in July, you give them 2 months, they say, okay, well, April and May are paid now.
Right. I think you're right. But I think that also goes back, John, to the fact that we're not going to be able to help. You know, we're going to have limited funds to help limited households.
And obviously through the application process, those most dire would be the ones accepted in, you know, the 2 unemployed, 2 out of work, you know, household, as opposed to, you know, maybe one adult being unemployed, 1 being working, like, you know, more or less the people that are really up against it be the first ones helped.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to prove that they suffered financial hardship because of the crisis, and they're going to have to prove that they're behind on their rental payments.
Right. And yeah, and I was just wanting, so everybody knows, that's not till August, say.
Yeah.
So it's not
When
something
we
who
would
maybe
actually be
behind
making
right now.
assumptions, most likely.
So if I'm behind, I'm just saying, if I'm behind right now, I was behind March, I was behind April. I have now a new job in July, and I'm not behind anymore. I'm not really probably going to, I'm probably not even going to apply for this, but if I did apply, I'm probably really not eligible anymore.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Because you won't be currently financially impacted. Yeah, that's an interesting question.
So it's really people who are going to be impacted 6 months down the road, not really right now, or have carried it since now.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's gonna you could be out of work as of March, or you're right, you could be out of work as of June, or you could realize that in August. That's one of the unknowns. And I'm not sure I'm answering your question.
No, I'm just trying to, just so, everyone's more aware, like, I came in and I was like, oh, okay, this is something we can do right now, but it's not something we can do right now. It's really something that, when it has to go to a vote, has to get approved in June, has a administration function that's going to take some time to do. And then, hopefully by then, we're all out of this mess, but I'm guessing we're not going to be, but hopefully we are. So hopefully the money's going somewhere that's needed. I guess that's the biggest thing for me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right. The money wouldn't hit the ground probably until earliest August. You're right. Which period of time that's assisting with, I guess, is going to vary. And again, those households won't be. I'm certain that the emergency won't be lifted prior to, let's say, September. So they still won't face foreclosure or eviction. And then, yeah, we're going to have to see what circumstances come in. And again, they're going to have to be eligible under the guidelines that were discussed.
Yeah, thank you.
So that could really, if it does, I mean, if it kicks off and people start, getting some assistance in that August, September range of the year, people that have, kind of sacrificed a lot of things, make sure their rent's paid or fallen behind on their rent. They might have been able to maintain it, but everything else has slipped, whether it's auto insurance, things like that, but they're trying to maintain their rent so they have a roof over their head. Type of situations like that. Now, they've maintained their rent, but they're behind on everything else. Is this fund going to be available for them, or is it strictly rental?
That would probably make it too complicated.
Yeah, it's strictly rental.
Yep.
Yeah, and
so really, the person that tries to maintain that house, that roof over their head type of thing, kind of gets left out in the cold if everything else is suffering.
yeah, I mean, I guess the only thing I could say to that is one of these somewhat upsides also to the money not hitting the ground until August is anyone who's lost out of work, and I think they've extended it to almost anybody, is eligible to apply for unemployment insurance. And there's that additional $600 benefit through July 1st. And so in some ways, the program rolling out a little bit later into the crisis might be an upside as it relates to this program, because that's when people, I think, are going to really start feeling the financial pinch.
Once their 26 weeks of unemployment or whatever is over, the extra federal kick in for the, yep.
Right.
Understandable. Actually, that makes it pretty good sense, though, because it will hit after all the federal money and stuff is set to run out.
Yeah. And the other thing, there are other resources available to assist with other hardships. So, for example, the SNAP program, food insecurity, I know even out of town hall, is one of the things that we have spent a considerable amount of time trying to assist with. The SNAP program, which provides funding for groceries, they've increased I believe it's a federal program, have increased the maximum amount award to everybody. It used to, I think there was a scaled award. And so there's some money there available for food. And so hopefully households aren't, sacrificing grocery purchases for their rents. But there probably is some shuffling right now of funds and priorities and what money's being spent on. We're trying to do, I think we're all trying to do the best we can to help in as many areas as possible. This crisis is just so broad sweeping. So many different households and in so many different ways. It's a tough one.
A little bit helps.
It does.
So
What do we
Would you
think,
like
guys?
now, Derek, would
Excuse
you
me?
like a
I think that it should definitely be worded, if you guys do want to go to a vote. I think that the any kind of a motion should be definitely worded to be contingent on, a positive selectmen's vote. So it would be something that's, basically unanimous from our committee and the Board of Selectmen. And, up to you guys to if anybody's got an idea of an amount you want to throw, burn it to the ground, send it all, type of thing. I mean, it's up to you guys, make the motion. And if you're for it, we'll put it to vote.
So just some numbers again, guys, as we think about that. Assuming 10,000, 40 households, 250 per household, that's the 10,000 number that Jen came up with. If we have 86,000 in the bank, that leaves us 76. Divided by 40, that's 1,900 per household. Jen, do you have any thoughts on how many lottery picks there would be to say, if we, let me ask it this way. Are we looking at providing, say, up to 3 months of assistance, or are we looking to provide up to a year of assistance? What are your thoughts on that?
No,
Just to,
The 2 months of assistance?
right. The presentation was 2 months. I think we talked about potentially going to 3, but when I talked to administrator of our CBD program, we went back and forth on that, and it sounds like two months are standard on a few other programs, and so it's just an existing baseline that we'd be applying.
So if we look at 2 months of assistance up to, say, $1,500 per month, it's 12 and a half households.
Yeah.
Just pull out the calculator.
After the withdrawal for the third-party administration.
Well, 12 and 2/3, really.
Yeah.
That's after assuming 10,000 loss from the 86. And I'm with you, Derek. I think we haven't seen any housing projects in the last 2 years. We continue to pile this on. I think it's a good use of funds. What I'm struggling with is the best way to apply it. I think, Jen and the town have done a really good job at really trying to throw, really good thought behind this.
Yeah, Steve, I'm trying to, so 76,000.
Yeah, it would be 25 households
Yeah,
for 2 months.
right. That's what I come up with.
At $1,500 per month?
Yep.
Yep.
So if you
Oh, what the heck did I do? Thank you.
divided that, if you divide it to 750, you can cover 50, right? On the whole.
That's saying that, at 1,500 and some of these rents, as we've seen in just the breakdown, actually it's still on the shared screen behind you. You can see the median of these things is between 1,000 and 1,500. So you're bound to have that $1,000 rent thrown in there, that $1,100 rent thrown in there.
Free up some funds.
So it would free up funds towards the person that does have the $1,600 a month rent, and maxing out at that $1,900 a month. I don't think that, I mean, obviously, if you kind of take the most needed and then move forward from there, if they end up with even 30 households with any excess from one that's unnecessary, somebody goes back to work, do they automatically qualify for 2 straight months right away? Or is it 1 month and then revisit it? Somebody goes back to work, they're back up and running, might not need the assistance for a second month, something along those lines. Is that something that we can build into this program where, like they do with regular unemployment, and they have to submit every week, or it's something that they have to submit at the end of the first month and then before the second payment, break it up into two separate payments.
Jen, could you go back to the program guidelines slide? I think it's slide 8. Just want to re-review what you guys are proposing.
Yeah, I mean, if you get how many households could we assist or expect to, my answer would probably be between 25 and 45, and I know that's a big range, but I think as Derek was saying, it's just going to vary because not everyone will be at the $1,500 mark. Some might be a little over. Some households may be able to contribute towards the rental payment. And again, I think making every attempt to spread it as, to help out as many people as possible, but still have it have an impact is just going to be important.
Agreed.
Jen, will you be involved in the whole process with the third party?
We'll be contracting with them.
So you'll have input.
Yeah, they'll have to follow our guidelines. We'll be in constant communication with them. We'll probably oversee the lottery. Is that what you mean?
Yeah,
Okay, so would this make sense for us to take a vote tonight to move forward, kind of contingent on selectmen, but also to be contingent on the acceptance of a revised program guideline that's got more explicit instructions of exactly how things happen with the rollout of the program, eligibilities, so on and so forth. Just to get the ball rolling now. It actually, it would look good to have the support of it going to the selectmen that it was already reviewed as well. And the funds are available from our side, and just to make sure. And obviously if Jen is going to be involved with this, she understands where we're all coming from. Obviously she's here to hear us out. That there is some kind of a contingency to make sure that the program doesn't stay vague. It, really nails down exacts. It's up to you guys. Like I said, I mean, I think it's a good idea. I think it's a great way to utilize this. We haven't had anything come through that qualifies, so the funds are sitting there. It's, we've made a lot of programs, outside of housing, pretty happy with moving forward with some of their projects and going to town meeting with them. This might be something that can, boost a little bit of confidence in CPA is not just doing projects, but also doing outreach.
Good PR.
Always.
And I think some of the questions are more regulatory. So I jotted a few of them down, and I don't know, Derek, or if one of the committee members want to shoot me a list of questions, I can vet those through our housing advocates and, and or Stuart, and get you those answers. One piece of advice that has been put out there in a few of the webinars on a specific topic from other organizations who are doing it are to keep it uncomplicated. And I think part of that reason is because Housing programs typically are complicated, so it makes some of us a little uncomfortable. But because of, I mean, even through the questions that were asked this evening, there are just going to be so many different scenarios. I think that we have the crux of what we want to do here down is the most important part. And we do have eligibility guidelines, we do have administrative guidelines, and there are the overlaying regulations which we really can't change. For example, around marketing or allowable preferences and unallowable preferences. The question about whether or not we could pay for rents due retroactively prior to a town meeting vote. All of those will have answers that we can't, that are not subjective to the community. I'm happy to find out the answers too.
Jen, do you need a vote tonight? The reason I'm asking this, maybe we have a joint meeting with the selectmen and get this list down and then vote on it. We're both going to be voting on the same, article or whatever you want to call it, program.
I mean, we could seek that. Honestly, my preference would be to have a vote tonight and then put it to the selectmen, just so we can move it along. I know that the agendas have been on the full side, and with town meeting now, hopefully a little over a month away. We also need to get the warrant out, and all of these, some of the outstanding questions that are there that exist right now will not be on the warrant. So worst case scenario, they could be we could discuss them at town meeting floor. But I suspect we'll have it all sorted beforehand. I could certainly ask about a joint meeting, but as far as a vote goes, I think it would be helpful tonight, again, to make sure that we're getting it on the warrant before it closes.
Yeah, and we can do something that's contingent, so that wouldn't be a problem at all.
So we could vote in favor of moving forward with a certain amount of funds, but it's not like we can vote on the article because there is no article written, right?
No, the article would have to be submitted from the selectmen.
Because
Don't we need to vote on the article as well, or no?
We wouldn't have to actually vote on the article itself as much as we would vote on the substance of the article, because the selectmen are going to hit us with the article. It's much like the McKinley project and so forth. They gave it to us. We wrote it, put our stamp on it, but the body of it was written by the town.
Right.
Yeah, and just so you know, on this particular article, the article could literally be vote to or move to approve to allocate, let's say $85,000 of affordable housing CPA funds for a rental assistance program. So the article will not have all the details of the program in there, just the purpose, the amount, and the purpose for the funds.
there's any guidelines that we adopt, I think the selectmen might want to modify them.
Yeah.
with some of. So by having a joint meeting, we can, take care of business at one shot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, we could, like I said, I mean, I definitely understand as far as getting the ball rolling. We just put in a couple contingencies, as far as making a vote, contingent upon approval by the selectmen. And, also we could put something into the vote just to get it moving, get it off our table and into somebody's hands. Review of the article prior to town meeting. Anything that you want to add to it. I mean, we could vote on what color we want to paint my ceiling. It really doesn't matter as long as it's got some kind of substance to move it along to the next step. It's town government. It's we don't have to open ourselves up. We're not obligated to it. If the selectmen decide they want to change a bunch of stuff to it, it's contingent upon approval of the program guidelines as written here. We're not going to say that. We're going to say, contingent to the approval of updated guidelines. you know, something along those lines.
So does someone want to come up with some wording on this?
I don't know. I'm looking at Steve, and he looks like he wants to.
I'm thinking, so I just want to confirm, we have 84, 86,000.
86,600.
86,600.
So you
I have
round
no
it off to
problem.
85,
I'm gonna round it off to 85.
something like that, just to leave something in there.
Sure.
And Derek, can I just ask, and I'm sure Jen might have touched with Stuart on this as well, but why are we allowed to now take money without going through our normal process at this point in time for this upcoming year?
It's basically, it'd be an emergency action.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah, I
and
was thinking about that too.
it is, and it really is. I mean, the bottom line, it's up to us on the CPA, on the committee. I mean, as a rule of thumb, we never broke from that. We have had people bring applications to us after the cutoff date, you know, rush job, this and that. And that was something that they kind of opened up, and even Stewart's, you know, sent out a couple things about it in reaction to, you know, a national pandemic.
I was gonna say, can we rate in the motion, just so it doesn't set a precedent due to the state of emergency declared by the town of Rockland?
Yeah.
I definitely want to put something like that in there, just because we've seen this in a few of our meetings that already have come up, and it'll consistently keep coming up, just in the town, the way we work. So definitely.
Why did you do it for them and not us?
Yeah.
That's the why them and not us type thing. Yep. It's an emergency to some people, not to others. You're always going to have people on both sides of the fence. But no, I definitely think that's a good idea, John, Steve. I think that very smart to throw in something there as it pertains to an emergency allocation of funds or whatnot. So if anybody wants to
Give it a shot.
give it a shot, and you can revise it as we go. It's not a problem.
Yeah, it's all right, so I'll give it a shot. Motion to,
All right, so
Motion
I'm
to move
recording,
forward.
Steve.
you gonna record this?
I am just for my my minutes.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's recorded anyway. You can go back and watch it on WRPS
I don't want to watch the
YouTube
whole
channel.
thing.
You don't want to watch it? All right, I'll try to go slow, and then if anyone wants to amend me, feel free. But motion to move forward with the COVID housing assistance proposal presented by Jennifer Constable in light of the state of emergency declared by the Board of Selectmen in the town of Rockland to fund this housing assistance program with available funds up to $85,000, contingent upon approval by the selectmen. How'd I do?
Everybody happy with that?
Yep.
Sounds
Good.
fine.
All right, can we get a second on that motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Should definitely do it as a roll call because on the video. So Steve,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Thomas,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
myself. That's unanimous. Well,
Thank you, everybody.
You're welcome.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
So I'll keep you posted, and Derek, if you want to send me the questions, I'll get those returned back to the committee as soon as possible. And
okay,
I'll
yep,
let
I
you
think
know.
just send them right through. They actually, I'll send out your email, just so it doesn't have to go directly, directly through me. Everybody should be able to just shoot you any questions they have and address them.
Okay, no problem.
I'll reach out as well to everybody and set up another meeting to review this after the selectmen's approval or vote on it. And
Okay. And I'll let you know when it's on the selectmen's agenda, and I'll send along also Mass Housing Partnership has put out some guidelines specific to the rental assistance program, and in consideration of CPA, it might be helpful. I think we covered everything in there, but you'll have it in writing also.
Excellent.
All right.
Excellent.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
Jen.
you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Motion, Aaron?
We have one thing to discuss. As an open or closing here, anybody who has not put in their application for reappointment. A lot of people need to do that soon.
I have not. I will.
I have to as
Some
well.
people are up. I think, John, I think you're up as well.
I had just done mine.
Sue had shot me an email saying a few people, and I think you were one of the ones that she had mentioned.
Yeah, I got the list in front of me here. Joe, you need to be reappointed.
I have been.
Yeah, Joe
you
and
have,
I
okay.
just got
You
reappointed.
just got reappointed, great. And then 2020, you got reappointed, Derek?
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay, that's great. Tom, you're up in September. And then Charlene is up at the end of May.
So I'm not on that list, Steve?
And Charlie, Charlie's up on 6/2.
I think John actually did.
John, you're good through May 21.
Is it 21? All right, because I'm trying to think if somebody was inactive.
Steve, I'm
Me.
not on the list.
Pete, you are good through June 2021.
Okay.
So it was Joe that was listed as inactive.
correct. I was up in October and I didn't realize it.
Okay.
So they just did it last week.
You can. I'm sharing my screen now.
Hey,
so
there you go.
You can see it.
Sweet stuff. Yep.
I like having a tech person on the committee.
We got two of them. And Steve and John, this is fantastic. Oh, John, also, we need to update the application.
Yes. I'll do
The ones
that.
that are online. I got an email from a woman about 2 days ago asking about it. And actually, strangely, it's about housing. Basically, a company that owns a property here in Rockland that has some low-income housing involved in it and some other things they already currently do have, but the building itself is going through some renovations and some updatings to add more units of affordable housing, which could help us meet our percentages townwide for affordable units. But they definitely are looking to possibly have some funding. Wouldn't be till next year after the next disbursement, so there might be something there. It might be another possible project, but she's looking for an application for it that's up to date.
Derek, can I interrupt? Can I be excused? I have another meeting I have to be on.
You can actually, if I think that's about it. If we want to get a motion to adjourn, and we'll discuss a next meeting at a later date.
Sounds good.
Motion.
Second.
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's it.
Aye.
All right.
All right, guys, I'll talk to you soon.